Okay, Dr. Mindy here, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about depression. This is also a comment and question we've been getting a lot on my channel. So I wanted to bring to you a checklist series where I go down and I show you a whole bunch of different strategies you can apply to get your brain out of a depression state. And many of these strategies are going to involve keto and fasting and diet variation, gut repair, all the things that I teach here on this channel. So sit tight. In all of my checklist series, I'm literally like doing a brain dump for you guys. Like I'm going through and thinking like if I was sitting with you one-on-one, one of the questions I would have is like, have you tried this? And have you tried this? And have you tried this? So that's what the checklist series is about, is to give you guys a long list that you can start to work from. I did this with chronic pain. I've done this with sleep. I just did one with diet variation so that you guys can start to put together this puzzle piece for yourself. Now, I know in all brain dumps that for some of you, you're going to be like, yes, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And some of you, this is going to be like drinking from a fire hose. So this is why I'm going live every Thursday on YouTube. So if you have questions, come find me there and ask them. If you turn on your notifications and you subscribe, you will be notified when I go live. And I'm hanging out there, educating, waiting for your questions so that you can really integrate this into your life and we can really start together to really make some significant change in your health. When it comes to depression, this is a big topic, and this can have a huge impact on your life. And so it's really important to me that you guys find some hope here. So let's start off with the first thing I want you to think about is what affects brain function. So I'll do some on memory. We can talk about that. We can do some on anxiety. But what I'm seeing in my clinic is that there are really three things that will affect brain function. One is your circumstance. So, and I think most of our world will buy into that and they say, yeah, of course, your circumstance, if you like what's going on in your life, you're happy. And if you don't like what's going on, you're not happy. But I actually think that circumstance is actually sort of a small part of what contributes to happiness. And I see people that in my clinic all the time that are ridiculously happy and don't have a lot going on great in their life. And I see people in my clinic, I'm in Silicon Valley, where people have a ton to be happy for and they're not. So that leads me to the other two things we have to look at when we're looking at brain function and happiness and getting you out of a depressive state. One piece that I see is it's just how you were modeled. And I will tell you now, I'm speaking to you as a parent. I watch my kids and I watch how they react to the world. And I can see that it pretty much is what my husband and I have modeled for them. So there is a genetic piece. There's a piece that you learn from the environment that you grew up in. So, but that's also a very small piece. I tell my patients that if I had to put a percentage to it, I think about 25% of your happiness will come from your genetics and modeling. 25% come from your circumstance, which leaves me with the 50% we're going to talk about today, which is your physiology. Because what we now know through neuroscience is that there are chemicals that control our thoughts. We also know through work, like if anybody of you have watched Joe Dispenza's work, Joe Dispenza has taught us that when we start thinking habits over and over and over again, we think thoughts over and over again, that neurons will wire together. So we have so much more knowledge now about how the brain works. So first off, before I go into the details, remember that there are three things that are coming together here to affect your happiness. Okay, so I just gotta start with that. Okay, so now let's dive into the organs you need to look at. What's the physiology that you can start to change so that you can start to get out of a depressive state so you can experience more happiness? So there are three organs. I think I like the number 3. So I'm just going to stay with 3 throughout this video. There are 3 organs: of course, there's your brain. And I'm going to go into your brain. There are 3 parts of the brain, 3 aspects to the brain that I want you to think about. We also now know through a tremendous amount of research that our gut health has a tremendous amount of effect on how our brain works. So we call this the gut-brain connection. This is a feedback loop. The chemicals in your brain are made in your gut, and they determine how your brain thinks. So we know the gut has a connection. We also, the 3rd part of your body that you need to look at is your vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve is the nerve that connects the brain to the gut to the brain and vice versa. So when we go to physiologically put you back together again and look at how we can improve brain health, how we can improve happiness and joy, and we can get some changes to the neurotransmitters and chemicals that are going on in your body, we've got to look at these 3 organs: the brain, the gut, and then I'm going to call the vagus nerve an organ, but we need to look at your vagus nerve. Okay? So let's dive into the brain. 3 questions I want you to ask yourself. Okay? The first is, are you neurochemically balanced? Now, anybody who's been under a lot of therapy in your life, or you've been under, or you know from like and talk to any postpartum woman, you will hear, or you've had any mood disorders since you were a young child, you know that you're not neurochemically balanced. Well, this is also happening to us on a more subtle level as we move through life. And this is where keto and fasting and diet variation really shines. And this is why so many of you, when you come to the keto lifestyle, when you start to fast, you really start to feel like your brain turns on. So when you go to look at neurochemically, if you're neurochemically balanced or not, there are 3, I'm going to say 4 chemicals that I want you to think about. The first is a chemical called BDNF. It's brain fertilizer. And those of you that love to exercise, why you love to exercise, why you feel so awesome after you exercise is because exercise, especially things like high intensity training, will stimulate BDNF. And it will start to create new neurons in your brain and make you happier. So if you want to learn something, go and exercise, and then go to study after you exercise. It's a great time because you've just given your body a surge of BDNF. Well, you know what else gives you an incredible surge of BDNF is intermittent fasting. This is one of the reasons why intermittent fasting has become such a mainstay of people's life now, because they're starting to notice that they're happier and their brain clarity. I will tell you, here in Silicon Valley, where I am, the tech industry, this organ is so well respected amongst the tech industry, and creativity is a must and being able to put in long hours is a must in the tech world. And so many people are catching on to intermittent fasting as a tool to get the brain to not only be clearer, but with the BDNF secretion, you're going to notice that you're going to be happier, that there's going to be more of a joyful state to the brain. Okay? So think about BDNF. Second thing I want you to think about with your neurochemical balance is serotonin and dopamine. So serotonin and dopamine this is where diet variation comes in. So I want you to think about, first off, is amino acids. So amino acids will really help with nourishing the neurons of the brain. You get amino acids in protein. So this is why I like to do the protein variation. I want you guys to have some high protein days, and I want you to have some low protein days. When you're doing low protein, you're stimulating autophagy, and you're detoxing the cells, and you're slowing the aging process down. But those of you who've been fasting a lot, you're doing too much keto, what's happening is, and you're bringing that protein down too little, is you're missing out on these amino acids. And all of a sudden you start to feel like this incredible lifestyle you created with fasting and keto is not bringing you as much joy. Well, you're going to need to power up some protein. You need to get some meat protein in there, or get some plant protein, or you're going to have to take an amino acid supplement. My favorite supplement for amino acids. One of my favorite supplements in general is called Neurosyn, and it helps to bring back in the key amino acids that you need to get your brain to function properly. I often, before I do like a large talk or before I'm working with patients and I know I have like a long day, I'll do a couple of Neurosyn. So if you haven't tried that, I highly recommend it. The other thing that we recommend a lot in our office, especially to teenagers for amino acids and minerals, is this supplement called Min. So a lot of people who are mineral depleted will end up with low serotonin and low dopamine. So don't forget how important minerals are. You guys that are fasting like a long period of time, you need to be thinking about the fact that you may be depleting your amino acid and mineral storage, okay? So minerals will help with serotonin and dopamine. Good gut health. So 90% of the serotonin is made in the gut. So I'll talk about gut health in a moment. Sunlight. You have serotonin receptor sites in your eyes. So when you walk out into the sun, make sure that you're not always wearing your sunglasses. You want your eyes to register sunlight so that you get serotonin pumping through your brain. Sleep is really important. If you're not sleeping, go back and watch the video that I did on sleep, but getting good sleep. This might mean you got to go to bed earlier. You're just going to have to commit. I like to tell my patients to commit somewhere to 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And sometimes you got to just push yourself to go to bed a little bit earlier. And then, of course, there are things like a lot of you know about magnesium is helpful. The magnesium that really helps with the brain is magnesium threonate, Neuromag. I didn't have any here, is one of my favorites. So, okay, so that's serotonin and dopamine from a physiological level, how you can bring those two things up. The last neurochemical I want you to think about is GABA. So serotonin and dopamine bring you joy, which is very common to not have, obviously, when you're suffering with depression. But if you have a lot of people I see have depression and anxiety. And so we encourage people to start working on bringing up more GABA. GABA is the calming part of your brain. And with GABA, this is where the ketogenic diet shines. So GABA, the keto diet, will upregulate GABA. So it will, when you get into a state of ketosis, your body starts to secrete more GABA. Now think about it. How many times have you been in ketosis where you click in and you go, oh, okay, yeah, I feel like I'm in ketosis right now. You're mentally sharp, you're calm, you feel solid, grounded. Well, that's exactly as you're getting a surge, not only of ketones, but those ketones are turning on GABA production in your brain. So I also like 4-7-8 breathing. You can go Google that, which is a breathing technique that gets you to secrete GABA. And then my favorite supplement that I love is something called Calm. Again, with all these supplements, we'll put a link in there, but this has really helped my patients to produce more GABA, and it'll also help with more serotonin and dopamine. Okay? So that's neurochemicals for the brain. Receptor sites, I also want to just point out that if you're doing all that and you're like, I'm still depressed, I'm still anxious, a lot of you are going to have to dive into heavy metals. So go watch the videos I did on heavy metals. I just got off of consultation with a patient who has been dealing with a lot of anxiety for a lot of years, and it's the heavy metal detox that finally shifted her out of that. So know that heavy metals opens up those receptor sites for BDNF, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, so that you can actually, everything I just talked about can actually get into the cell and it can make a change. Okay? Second thing with the brain I want you to think about is what part of the brain are you operating from? Are you operating more from your limbic system, the mid part of the brain, which is the part of the brain that is fight or flight? Or are you operating more from your prefrontal cortex? When we operate from our prefrontal cortex, this is where we feel hope. We can actually set goals and work on creating details and steps to get to those goals. When we're in the limbic system, we're just reacting and we're in fight or flight all the time. So something comes to us and boom, we go into a stress response. So a couple ideas I have to help you get, if that's you and you feel like you're stuck in that midbrain, a couple ideas I have for you. We are doing this in our office it's something called Brain Tap. I'd go check it out online. We have been brain tapping families and kids in here, teens with anxiety, and the results the parents are telling us is off the hook. People are noticing that they're reacting to stress in a much calmer way. So check out BrainTap. If those of you that are seeing your chiropractor, there's research now showing that you get 30% more blood flow to your prefrontal cortex after one chiropractic adjustment. So if you're feeling bummed out and today you're having a series of bad days, you're in a depressive state, nothing will move you out of that state quicker than a chiropractic adjustment. So you can go and look at that as a source for you as well. And then meditation. You guys, I know that that many of you are avid meditators. Something as little as 10 minutes a day is great. I mentioned his name in the beginning. Go check out Joe Dispenza's work. Really cool information on how we can train he's all over YouTube, and he'll teach you how to start to train your brain to operate from this frontal cortex. Okay? And then the last thing I want you to think about from the hip is, how healthy is your hippocampus? So your hippocampus is the mood and memory part of your brain. This has to do with where Alzheimer's and dementia is being created from, or is stemming from. It has a lot to do with a high sugar, high carb diet. So ketogenic diet is healing the hippocampus. We also know that the hippocampus is strongly connected to smells. So those of you that are into essential oils, we know that the certain essential oils can stimulate the hippocampus and can wake up the hippocampus. We also know detoxing heavy metals will help that. Those of you that have access to a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, that will help to drive oxygen into the hippocampus, which will help with mood and memory. So there's so many, like I said, this is a checklist series. Like, I'm just information dumping so that you can decide what path is right for you. And if you've tried any of these and they're working for your depression, please let us know, because this is how, as a community here on my YouTube page, we can help other people. They'll read your comments and then they get excited about whatever worked for you. They're going to want to lean into and start to work on. Okay, so that's the brain. Those are the three things on the brain. Neurochemicals, are you operating from your midbrain or your front brain, and how healthy is your hippocampus? Okay, last two organs I want to go through, and I'm going to go through them fairly quickly here. The gut. I've talked so much about the gut on here. The best thing you can do for your gut is our 24-hour fasts, because what will happen is you start to repair the intestinal stem cells, or you start to secrete intestinal stem cells that will kill off any bad bacteria in there. So make sure, go watch the video on diet variation. Make sure you're looking at adding in some 24-hour fasts. Go look at the video I did on plant diversity score. You got to be adding in more plants into your diet to feed the good bacteria. Make sure you're taking a probiotic, but not the same probiotic all the time. If you take the same probiotic over and over and over again, it's not working for you. I recommend people go on a probiotic for like a month, and then they get off, and get off for a couple months, and then go back onto that probiotic. And if you have not done a gut test, I really recommend you actually do a gut test and know what's going on in your gut. Our favorite is the Gut Zoomer. So remember, if this isn't healthy, this isn't going to be healthy. So you got to make sure that you're doing a ton of gut repair. I have so many videos on gut repair on this channel. So go back, if you're new to my channel, go back and look at those. Okay, last thing, the vagus nerve. This is one of my favorite parts of the human body. It is the connection from the gut to the brain. And there are some really fun ways you stimulate it, like humming, chanting, gargling, splashing cold water on your face. Those things start to wake up your vagus nerve and make it more active, so that the communication from the brain to the gut is actually happening. So if you're going through this checklist and you're like, I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm still feeling so depressed, then I really want you to dive in to understanding the vagus nerve. So the things I just mentioned will help to wake that vagus nerve up. The vagus nerve then can create a better communication pathway. And then again, those of you getting chiropractic adjustments, nothing wakes the vagus nerve up more than a good lumbar adjustment, making sure those are balanced and making sure your atlas is in alignment. So I'm a big fan, and this is why I call it a checklist series. Take all those things I just told you, go back, watch this again, write it out, and then make a plan for yourself. Say, okay, am I fasting? Am I doing keto? Do I have high protein days? Am I getting chiropractic care? Am I getting out in the sun? Am I getting sleep? Like, I want you to take all those suggestions that I just gave you, and I want you to list them out and then decide what's the right path for you. This is how we're going to heal the world, is when we empower our own selves on our own health path. So, from the bottom of my heart, I really hope that helps. Again, I know these checklist series are long and I know they're an information dump. Please give me feedback. Let me know if this is helpful. If there's something else you want a checklist series done on, put it in the comments and we'll make sure. This is how we got one on depression, is because you guys asked for it, so I gave it to you. So what else do you need to know so that you can move your health forward? And always, please, always, always, always remember, your body's a miracle. It's born to heal. You just need the tools to do it, okay? As always, I hope that helps.